This is everything I know about running games on Linux so far. Hopefully in the future we'll have to do less and less tweaking and installing additional stuff. I'm not going to show you the installation part because I've already done that, so you should view this more as a collection of information. So the first step is get the latest graphics driver. For me, it's the nvidia currently 430 driver because I have an nvidia GPU. Then install Steam, get Wine and also winetricks. The fourth step is about setting up winetricks, but if you're going to eventually use Steam or Lutris or play on Linux, you are probably not gonna have to do any of that. Still though, I did it, so I'm going over that stuff a little bit. Next, get dxvk and deny-vk, get async, install Lutris, and finally get game mode. Okay, so basically you have to add the non-free repository, update, and then install the latest NVIDIA driver if you have an NVIDIA graphics card. I did it through the driver manager, but this is another way to do it. If you want to use the terminal, then install Steam, and here I have listed the little problem that happened for me. I don't remember anymore why that happened, but it did happen. So every time I would start Steam, it would start looking for this package because it obviously didn't have it. And this is the solution. If you don't have aptitude yet, you install it first, then you install through aptitude these two packages, and the message every time on startup will disappear. And here I've written down I had to downgrade certain packages in order to install this stuff. Otherwise, Steam keeps asking for it every time on startup, which is very inconvenient. It's not that hard to get through it to exit the process, but every time you start Steam, I remember it starts the terminal and it looks for this specific package. Otherwise, visibly I didn't check everything, but it seemed fine. It's just that it was inconvenient. Okay, next thing I want to mention is the saved games location. That's basically for Steam, but you can use some parts, basically I think since drive C for other games too, depending on where you install them. So you get to Steam through the usual route: home, username, your username, local, share, Steam, steamapps, compatdata, and then I have intentionally left the space. I think this is the Steam ID for GTA 3. So you enter the specific game folder, then PFX, and eventually everything becomes very recognizable, just like on Windows. Steam Proton game ID, where the game saves and other stuffs are, and other stuff is. Check the shop ID in Steam. Steam store page has the ID, yes. So I guess I will show you that now. if we go to Steam, and let's say I'm going to search for GTA 3, click on GTA 3. Yep, I was correct. There it is, 12100. This is the Steam ID. So that's how you find the specific game folder, and eventually if you want to, your game saves. These are launch options related to Steam Proton. First one is if you want to enable game mode for the next Mint, it will have to be .so.0. I'm gonna mention that later on again. Another notable option is disable async, and also disable dxvk, which is obviously rarely used, and I'm going to show you now. I got some of those functions from this site, where they're kind of listed and they tell you what they do. Then there's some additional stuff like how to install Proton locally, how to build Proton, how you can modify Proton, all of that good stuff. Okay, next get wine, or I got WINE-stable. All right, so before that, I actually forgot to mention about ProtonDB. That's a really good page where you can check how compatible your game is under Linux. So you can see a lot of games already work. Some of the most notable games are running on Linux, no problems, especially if you're playing WoW games. These are native Linux games, so you don't have to do anything, you simply install and hit play. Otherwise, if you're playing games through Steam, you have to enable Steam Proton, which is done with a couple of mouse clicks, and then you again hit play. And then if your game runs, well, your game runs. If it doesn't, then you're gonna have to do some more tweaking or wait for somebody to make it work. So let's say I'll check GTA 3 again. The overall score is gold, and here you can see reports of different users, what distributions they used, what drivers they had at the time, what kernel they, what Proton version they were using, what kernel they were using, everything, possible solutions. Okay, so next on line is wine. So I have Linux Mint, which means the closest possible thing is Ubuntu. I click on Ubuntu, and then this is one good reason why you should know which Ubuntu version your distribution was based on, if it's in the Ubuntu branch, because you don't want to mix up files. So I did everything that was asked here, but something wasn't just right. And there is also 3 versions of WINE-stable: development and staging. I think it was written somewhere what was what, but I don't remember where. So based on memory, I believe stable was, well, obviously the stable version, like everything was checked, everything is known to work. The development version is for developers. I think they might have something extra there. And staging is basically the newest possible thing. So it's not been thoroughly tested yet, but if you wish to, you can use it. So this is, what is it? This is the line that tripped me up the most, and wine just wouldn't install properly. That's why I have written here this stuff, which I read on a forum, I believe. Your problem is the -- install -- recommends flag to apt or aptitude. This will pull in additional optional dependency packages for all packages in the hierarchy of package dependencies for the main meta packages, which means it's not necessary. And I even used install -f, which is for forced install, and I installed winehq-stable, and then I checked the wine version just to make sure it's the correct newest wine stable version, and that's pretty much it. That's how I solved my installation of wine. Then you have to get winetricks in order to be able to configure wine and create wine bottles more easily. So every time you want to install a new game, it's best to put it in a specific, its own wine bottle. It's being more isolated that way, and if something else uses similar files, then you will not have any problems by having the different games isolated. So this is the line for creating a wine bottle. First, you select the wine architecture in terminal. WINEARCH equals Win32, or you type Win64, one of the two, and then WINEPREFIX equals home username, your username, wine, bottle name, and then winetricks. And then you can go ahead and configure everything. If you want to reconfigure that specific bottle, you simply have to write wineprefix and then the path to the bottle, which is basically this part, and after it winetricks, and again it will open the configuration window. Here I've written your wine process. This will be mentioned later on. So, winetricks, settings, architectures, and stuff. Some of the most sought after notable stuff is first installing DLLs, D3, DX9, .NET 35, .NET 4.5.2. These are specific versions, so you don't need anything in between. dxvk, if it's available for me, it wasn't. It's supposed to be between dx SDK and eCent. Well, it wasn't visible for me, so I installed it outside of Wine, which is fine. I'm gonna go over that as well. VC run 2003, 2005, everything up to 2015 is okay. Now 2015 and 2017 have similar DLL files, So one can break the other, and you have to choose which for which wine bottle. If you're creating your own wine bottles, you probably, I don't know, I haven't tried it, but you probably can have both at the same time. That's why creating different wine bottles is wise, because sometimes stuff breaks. GDI Plus, maybe for some games, this is kind of like 50-50. Install it if you feel like it. I guess if you don't have it, eventually you'll find out by doing some research if your game doesn't run. X input for Xbox controller, if you're using that. For some games you may not even have to install it. It might already be integrated. And yeah, these are the main suspects. There's also FFD show. That's also not mandatory. You probably won't need it, but maybe for some old games. And then fonts, core fonts, and Tahoma is what I consider as core fonts. I think definitely install the core fonts. And Tahoma, I think, is another really good font that is I don't really pay attention, I don't know much, but I think it's often used. And whenever you want to install this stuff, it will show you a message that's basically like I want to install this until you shut down the wine server. So you're then thinking, well, I'm installing stuff for wine, so do I not need that stuff? No. That's why these command lines here, if wineserver-k doesn't work, you simply type wineserver-k9 in terminal to force kill the wine processes, and then you can safely install core fonts. Otherwise it will keep showing that error over and over again and nothing is gonna be resolved. And finally, go to config. Well, actually, maybe I can show you really briefly. Choosing Windows 7 is the most well-known or the safest option, I would say. What is it? Run wine CFGs. Most games are known to run well under Windows 7 compatibility. Another good option is Windows XP, maybe for again some older games, or for something newer, Windows 10. And here you can see I have installed in the default wine bottle some stuff. Okay. Next we have get dxvk. Well, first, as they say, you have to have wine 3.10 or newer. Then they recommend wine staging, but I have winetricks version 4.00 and everything's fine. They're talking here about wine dependencies. Nothing that I don't think cannot be resolved through aptitude, but if you wish to help yourself out, you could do it from this page as well. These are the same command lines, just like from the WINEHQ side. Which you can also use to check if your games work on Linux. Say again, for example, GTA 3. And you choose the version, let's say the Steam version. And again, different people have given their ports based on their distribution and one version and possible weights, what may work, what may not work. Moving on. Vulkan capable GPUs, well, let's see, most of them are pretty much very capable now. As you can see, you can also go ahead and check the site for yourself. Next on the line, driver supported by dxvk. This is also important to come and see so that you don't waste your time with other drivers. Just install the newest possible. And finally, installing Vulkan. You simply copy paste a couple of command lines in the terminal and you're done. Vulkan is installed. That serves as a translation layer. It's from dxvk to Vulkan, so that's what's going on. You kind of need this if you want to use Vulkan, and you also may want d9vk because dxvk is for DirectX 10 and 11, and DirectX 9 to Vulkan was made possible later. So you can simply, from the same webpage, look at the tutorial video and you'll see how to set that up. Okay, another way to set up d9vk is, well, this is the usual way. Copy the DLLs to, for example, Lutris, the Lutris runtime, or in terminal. You change, first you download an archive, you unarchive the files, you change the directory to that to that folder, you export WINEPREFIX your specific game where you want to install d9vk. This is for GTA 4. You type in echo $WINEPREFIX just to see which prefix you're using, just double checking, and then since you're already in the directory, you hit // setup and install, and it's going to install the same DLLs, which you can also copy in the Proton folder, just like in Lutris's runtime, and it should work for all games, but I tried it and it didn't work. I don't know why. Maybe I copied the files over to a different Proton version. Something went wrong, so I found this method, but this method only works for GTA 4. So if I want to use d9vk for another game, I'll have to go through this whole process in the terminal again. Okay, next up is async. not too much to say about it really. You go to the site and everything's explained. One way I was bamboozled is here they tell you, hey, run this command and see if the value is, if you get this number, and if you got that number, then you're all set. So I was thinking, oh, so if I get this number, then I can proceed. No. And then I read below, if you don't get this number, then you have to do these tweaks over here, which is basically like unlocking a function or simply adding the line to these files. And that's pretty much it. That's enabling easing. You can also read some more about it here if you want to learn about what it does. And then finally you are ready to install Lutris. Nothing too complicated. You add a repository, you update all the repositories, and then you install Lutris. If you go to the Lutris site, you will see they advise you to first install a recent version of Wine, and it's advisable if you beforehand install eSync and dxvk as well, because Lutris uses those. And then based on your distribution, you choose how to install it. And Lutris basically serves as an automatic configurator for games, so we don't need winetricks or whatever. You simply hit install through Lutris. It sets up everything for you. It installs whatever needs to be installed for the specific game, and then you're hopefully ready to play. The final thing I want to mention is game mode, which could significantly improve your FPS. And as you can see, you may need to add this repository. If not, simply install game mode, and then just to make sure that you have this file, because you will have to use it later on, just do a simple find command line with the name of the file. If the system doesn't find it, that means its name is something different, and for Linux Mint is .so.0. I think .so works for Ubuntu, but a lot of people have reported, and me included, for Mint is .so.0, and even if it doesn't find .so.0, I read somewhere that it names the file in such ways where it simply adds another .0. So if .so.0 doesn't work, try .so.0.0. Once you make sure it's there, then you can go to Lutris, for example, and maybe I can run it and show you. Say, for example, for Overwatch, you come to System Options, you add another key, and you copy paste the text. And of course, since I'm running Linux Mint, I had to name it libgamemode-auto.so.0, and that's pretty much it. Lutris will now be using game mode. if you have to enable it in Steam again if it doesn't find that file. For example, for me, since I'm using Linux Mint, I'll have to type in the same path, but instead with the same file name, but instead .0.0.0. Disabling async in Steam and in Lutris could sometimes improve your performance, so keep that in mind. Enabling and disabling game mode and async is not always beneficial. And finally, I want to talk about enabling game mode in Steam. This way is supposed to be somewhat of an outdated way to enable it in Steam. Importantly, you're only gonna have to type in the launch options game mode run %command%, but it didn't work for me. I don't know, I guess I didn't do something right. Another way to do it is to type in game mode run and the path to the game folder. So this works without fail. And here there's some additional info as to what may be happening. I read somewhere that %command% is specified at the beginning, which is invisible for the user, so you have to give it the path to the game folder. When there is no %command% in the launch options, it is applied to be at the start. Therefore, having game mode run the path to the game folder in the launch options is expected to put the options after the launch command. So that's basically why you have to add %command% after the path to the game folder. But then again, it's very long, so if you can do it in a shorter way with a shorter line, maybe this or whatever works for you, that's gonna be best. I also read that for Windows you have to add the %command% at the start, but for Linux it's supposed to be at the end of all of the commands. And yeah, that is pretty much it.